God. That choice not only changed his life, it changed our country, and indeed, it even changed the world. Reverend Graham's belief in the power of God's word gave hope to millions and millions who listened to him with his very beautiful but very simple message: God loves you. And a very special tribute, because it's almost never done. On Wednesday, we will celebrate Billy Graham's life as he lies in honor in the rotunda of our Capitol. Very rarely. One day, Wednesday till Thursday, about 11 o'clock on Wednesday, I bet those lines are going to be long and beautiful, because he deserves it. Not everybody deserves it, but very few people. You look back, Ronald Reagan was so honored. Very few people are so honored. That's a big thing. And he really, almost more than anybody you can think of, he deserves to be in the rotunda. So that's going to be very special. Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And Paul and Mitch and the whole group, they work very hard to make it all happen. So we want to thank them too. Everywhere you go, all over the country, in cities small and large, Americans of all faiths reach out to our Creator for strength, for inspiration, and for healing. Great time for healing. In times of grief and hardship, we turn to prayer for solace and for comfort. In recent days, our entire nation has been filled with terrible pain and sorrow over the evil massacre in a great community, Parkland, Florida. This senseless act of mass murder has shocked our nation and broken our hearts. This week, I had the honor of meeting with students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, with families who have lost their children in prior shootings, great families, great people, with members of the local community right here in Washington, D.C. Our whole nation was moved by their strength and by their courage. We listened to their heart-wrenching stories, asked them for ideas, and pledged to them. And I can speak for all of the senators and congressmen and congresswomen, all of the people in this room that are involved in this decision, that we will act. We will do something. We will act. With us on Wednesday was one of the families whose daughter didn't come home last week, a beautiful young woman named Meadow Pollock. Incredible family. I had them in the Oval Office. Incredible people. You've probably seen her picture. She had a beautiful, beautiful smile and a beautiful life, so full of promise. We wish there was something, anything we could do to bring Meadow and all of the others back. There are not enough tears in the world to express our sadness and anguish for her family and for every family that has lost a precious loved one. No family should ever save and ever have to go in and suffer the way these families have suffered. They've suffered beyond anything that I've ever witnessed. A father drops his daughter off at school, kisses her goodbye, waves to her, she's walking up the path, and never sees her alive again. Gets a call, can't believe it, thinks it's a nightmare, wants to wake up from the nightmare. So we want to hear ideas from Americans of all backgrounds and beliefs about how we can improve security at our schools, tackle the issue of mental health, because this was a sick person, very sick. And we had a lot of warning about him being sick. This wasn't a surprise. To the people that knew him, this wasn't even a little bit. In fact, some said, we're surprised it took so long. So what are we doing? What are we doing? We want to ensure that when there are warning signs, we can act and act very quickly. Why do we protect our airports and our banks, our government buildings, but not our schools? It's time to make our schools a much harder target for attackers. We don't want them in our schools. We don't want them. When we declare our schools to be gun-free zones, it just puts our students in far more danger. Far more danger. Well-trained, gun-adept teachers and coaches and people that work in those buildings, people that were in the Marines for 20 years and retired, people in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, people that are adept with weaponry and with guns. They teach. I mean, I don't want to have 100 guards standing with rifles all over the school. You do a concealed carry permit. And this would be a major deterrent, because these people are inherently cowards. If they thought, like if this guy thought that other people would be shooting bullets back at him, he wouldn't have gone to that school. He wouldn't have gone there. It's a gun-free zone. It says this is a gun-free zone. Please check your guns way far away. And what happens is they feel safe. There's nobody going to come at them. This way, you may have, and remember, if you use this school as an example, this is a very big school with tremendous floor area and a lot of acreage. It's a big, big school, good school, a big, big school. You'd have to have 150 real guards. Look, you had one guard. He didn't turn out to be too good, I will tell you that. He turned out to be not good. He was not a credit to law enforcement, that I can tell you. That I can tell you. But as I've been talking about this idea, and I feel it's a great idea, but some people that are good people are opposed to it. They don't like the idea of teachers doing that. But I'm not talking about teachers. You know, CNN went on. They said, Donald Trump wants all teachers. Okay? Fake news, folks. Fake news. Fake news. I don't want a person that's never handled a gun, that wouldn't know what a gun looks like, to be armed. But out of your teaching population, you have 10%, 20% of very gun-adept people. Military people, law enforcement people, they teach. They teach. And something I thought of this morning, you know what else? And I thought of it since I found and watched Peterson, the deputy who didn't go into the school because he didn't want to go into the school, okay? He was tested under fire, and that wasn't a good result. But you know what I thought of as soon as I saw that? These teachers, and I've seen them at a lot of schools where they had problems. These teachers love their students, and the students love their teachers in many cases. These teachers love their students, and these teachers are talented with weaponry and with guns, and they feel safe. And I'd rather have somebody that loves their students and wants to protect their students than somebody standing outside that doesn't know anybody and doesn't know the students, and frankly, for whatever reason, decided not to go in, even though he heard lots of shots being fired inside. The teachers and the coaches and other people in the building, the dean, the assistant dean, the principal, they love their people. They want to protect these kids. And I think we're better with that. And this may be 10% or 20% of the population of teachers, et cetera. It's not all of them, but you would have a lot, and you would tell people that they're inside. And the beauty is it's concealed. Nobody would ever see it unless they needed it. It's concealed. So this crazy man who walked in wouldn't even know who it is that has it. That's good. It's not bad. That's good. And a teacher would have shot the hell out of him before he knew what happened. They love their students. They love those students, folks. Remember that. They love their students. And I'm telling you that would work, because we need offensive capability. We can't just say, oh, it's a gun-free school, we're going to do it a little bit better. Because then you say, what happens outside? The students now leave school, and you got 1,000 students. You got 3,500 at the school we're talking about. But you have 1,000 students standing outside. The teachers are out there also. If a madman comes along, we have the same problem, but it's outside of the school. Or they drive cars. There are a lot of things can happen. I want to stop it. And I know it's a little controversial to say, but I have to say, since I started this 2 days ago, a lot of people that were totally opposed to it are now agreeing. They love their students. They don't want their students to be killed and to be hurt. So we have to do something that works. And one of the big measures that we will do, and everybody in this room, I think, has to agree, and there's nobody that loves the Second Amendment more than I do, and there's nobody that respects the NRA. They're friends of mine. They backed us all. They're great people. They're patriots. But they're great people. But we really do have to strengthen up, really strengthen up background checks. We have to do that. And we have to do, for the mentally ill, we have to do we don't want people that are mentally ill to be having any form of weaponry. We have to be very strong on that. So we're going to do that, and I really believe that Congress is going to get it through this time, and they have a different leader. They have somebody that wants to get it through, not somebody that just all talk, no action, like so many of these folks. This is somebody that wants to get it through. But I also want to protect. We need a hardened site. It has to be hardened. It can't be soft, because they'll sneak in through a window, they'll sneak in some way, and again, you're standing there totally unprotected. You know the 5 great soldiers from 4 years ago. 3 of them were world-class marksmen. They were in a military base in a gun-free zone. They were asked to check their guns quite far away. And a maniac walked in, guns blazing, killed all 5 of them. He wouldn't have had a chance if these world-class marksmen had, on a military base, access to their guns. And I'm going to look at that whole policy on military bases. If we can't have... All 5 were killed. All 5. The guy wouldn't have had a chance. But we're going to look at that whole military base gun-free zone. If we can't have our military holding guns, it's pretty bad. We had a number of instances on military bases. You know that. So we want to protect our military. We're going to make our military stronger and better than it's ever been before. We also need to create a culture in our country that cherishes life and human dignity. That's part of what we're talking about. A culture that condemns violence and never glorifies violence. We need to foster real human connections and turn classmates and colleagues into friends and neighbors that want to fight for us. We're not just having a conversation about school safety. You've had conversations, in all fairness, I'm pretty new on this job. We're here a little more than a year. I've been watching this stuff go on for 20 years. The president gets up, everybody's enthusiastic for the first couple of days, then it fades, fades, fades. Nothing ever gets done. We want to see if we can get it done. Let's get it done right. We really owe it to our country. I've been watching for a long time. Seen a lot of words, and I've seen very little action. And you know, if you think about it, most of it's just common sense. It's not, do you love guns? Do you hate guns? It's common sense. It's all common sense. And some of the strongest advocates about what I'm saying are the strongest advocates, I know them very well, political people, the strongest advocates for the Second Amendment. But this is common sense. In addition to securing our schools, we're also implementing a strategy to secure our streets. We want our kids to be safe everywhere they go, whether they're in a classroom, walking home from school, or just outside playing with their friends. Every child deserves to grow up in a safe community surrounded by a loving family and to have a future filled with opportunity and with hope. Thank you. Thank you. It's just not fair. Reducing violent crime in America is a top priority for my administration, and we will do whatever it takes to get it done. No talk. We're going to do what it takes to get it done. As you've seen, pretty well reported that we're significantly increasing gun prosecutions by tremendous percentages. And we're working to get violent offenders off our streets and behind bars, and get them behind bars quickly for a long time, or get them the hell out of our country. In 2017, we brought cases against more violent offenders than any administration in a quarter of a century, more than any administration, and we're just gearing up. We have tough people. I tell you what, when you deal with MS-13, the only thing they understand is toughness. They don't want anything. All they understand is toughness. If that ICE agent or Border Patrol agent is tougher than them, they respect him. We got the toughest guys you've ever seen. We got tough. They don't respect anything else. And they shouldn't be in our country. They were let in for years. They shouldn't be. And we're getting them out. Our administration prosecuted more people for federal firearm charges than has been done in more than a decade. And again, we're just gearing up. We convicted 1,200 gang members and nearly 500 human traffickers. You know what, human trafficking? Who would think that we have this in this age? And with our foreign partners, we've helped charge or arrest more than 4,000 members of the savage gang that we talked about, MS-13. Now, they don't like guns. You know why? They're not painful enough. These are animals. They cut people. They cut them. They cut them up in little pieces, and they want them to suffer. And we take them into our country because our immigration laws are so bad. And when we catch them, it's called catch and release. We have to, by law, catch them and then release them. Catch and release. And I can't get the Democrats, and nobody has been able to for years, to approve common sense measures that when we catch these animal killers, we can lock them up and throw away the keys. In 2017, our brave ICE officers arrested more than 100,000 criminal aliens who have committed tens of thousands of crimes. And believe me, these are great people. They cannot, the laws are just against us. They're against safety. They don't make sense. And you meet with Democrats, and they're always fighting for the criminal. They're not fighting for law-abiding citizens. They're always fighting for the criminal. Doesn't make sense. Here are just some of the criminal charges and convictions for the aliens arrested by ICE. 11,000 charges or convictions for sex crimes, 48,000 for assault, 13,000 for burglary, and 1,800 for killing people. We're cracking down on sanctuary cities. Can you believe this? Where they protect. That's another one. Because we want our cities to be sanctuaries for law-abiding Americans, not for criminals. And by the way, the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats have totally abandoned DACA. They don't even talk to me about it. They have totally abandoned. You know, we get the reputation like DACA, it's not Republican. Well, let me tell you, it is Republican, because we want to do something about DACA, get it solved after all these years. The Democrats are being totally unresponsive. They don't want to do anything about DACA. I'm telling you, and it's very possible that DACA won't happen, and it's not because of the Republicans. It's because of the Democrats. And frankly, you better elect more Republicans, folks, or it'll never happen. The Democrats voted in favor of sanctuary cities. In other words, they voted to protect criminal aliens instead of voting to protect the American citizens. To secure our country, we are calling on Congress to build a great border wall to stop dangerous drugs and criminals from pouring into our country. And now they're willing to give us the wall, but they don't want to give us any of the laws to keep these people out. So we're going to get the wall, but they don't want to give us all of the other: chain migration, lottery. Think of a lottery. You have a country. They put names in. Do you think they're giving us their good people? Not too many of you people are going to be in a lottery. So we pick out people. Then they turn out to be horrendous, and we don't understand why. They're not giving us their best people, folks. They're not giving us, I mean, use your heads. They're giving us, it's a lottery. I don't want people coming into this country with a lottery. I want people coming into this country based on merit, based on merit. I want people, and we all want to be admitting people who have skills, who can support themselves financially, who can contribute to our economy, who will love our people, and who will share our values, who will love our country. I don't want people who drive a car at 100 miles an hour down the West Side Highway and kill 8 innocent victims and destroy the lives of 14 more. Nobody talks about that. Nobody ever talks about the people that have been so horribly injured, who lose legs and arms. In Manhattan, where I used to spend my time, I know it very well, this stretch along the West Side Highway, people run in order to stay in shape. They want to be healthy. They want to look good. They run. They're running all the time. I see it. They run. We work in different ways, but they run. No, but think of this. They run, and they want to be fit. They're proud people. They want to be fit, and they're running up and down West Side Highway. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And this maniac takes a car going down the highway and just turns to it right, and he kills 8, but he really badly wounded 12 to 14 other people. So somebody think of it, runs to stay in shape, leaves the house, is jogging along, working hard, ends up going home 2 months later with no leg, or with no arm, or with two legs missing. Nobody ever talks about them. They talk about the people, rightfully, that were killed. But they don't talk about the people whose lives have been just changed. They don't talk about that. This guy came in through chain migration and a part of the lottery system. They say 22 people came in with him. In other words, an aunt, an uncle, a grandfather, a mother, a father, whoever came in. But a lot of people came in. That's chain migration. Let's see how those people are doing, by the way. We've got to change our way. Merit system. I want merit system because you know what's happening? All these companies are coming into our country. They're all coming into our country. And when they come in, we need people that are going to work. I'm telling you, we need workers now. We need workers. But when I walked in today, did anyone ever hear me do the snake during the campaign? Because I had 5 people outside say, could you do the snake? And I said, well, people have heard it. Who hasn't heard the snake? You should read it anyway. He said, let's do it anyway. I'll do it. All right, should we do it? Now, this was a rock and roll song, little amendments, a rock and roll song. But every time I do it, people, and you have to think of this in terms of immigration. We have to have great people come into our country. I want people to come into our country. And I want people that are going to help us. And I don't want people that are going to come in and be accepting all of the gifts of our country for the next 50 years and contribute nothing. I don't want that. And you don't want that. I want people that are going to help and people that are going to go to work for Chrysler, who is now moving from Mexico into Michigan, and so many other. And Apple, by the way, and Foxconn up in Wisconsin. They're going to need 25,000 workers. I want people that can come in and get to work and work hard, even if it means a learning period, that's fine. But I want people that are going to come in and work. And I want people that love us and look at security, and they want you to be safe, and they want to be safe. I want great people coming into this country. I don't want people coming in the way they do now, because I want people that contribute. So this is called the snake, and think of it in terms of immigration. And you may love it, or you may say, isn't that terrible, okay? And if you say, isn't that terrible, who cares? Because the way they treat me, that's peanuts compared to the way they treat me, okay? Immigration. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-hearted, frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, she cried, I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in by now, surely you would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, heavens why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. And that's what we're doing with our country, folks. We're letting people in, and it's going to be a lot of trouble. It's only getting worse. But we're giving you protection like never before. Our law enforcement's doing a better job than we've ever done before. And we love our country. And we're going to take care of our country. Okay, we're going to take care of our country. So just in finishing, our country is starting to do very well. Our economy is blazing. Jobs are at a record level. Jobs are so good. 2.7 million jobs created since the election. Unemployment claims have reached a 45-year low. African-American unemployment has reached the lowest level in our history. Hispanic unemployment has reached the lowest level in our history. Women unemployment is at the lowest level in 18 years. Wages are rising for the first time in many, many years. Small business confidence is at a record high. And thanks to our massive tax cuts, millions of Americans are getting to keep a great percentage of their money instead of paying it to a government that throws it out the window. So I just leave you with this. We have to fight Nancy Pelosi. They want to give your money away. They want to give your money away. They want to end your tax cuts. They want to do things that you wouldn't even believe, including taking your Second Amendment rights away. They will do that. They will do that. So we have to get out there, and we have to fight in 18 like never before, just the way you fought with us. Just the way you fought with us. You fought so hard, and you were so tough, and you were so smart. You were so smart. And you know what? I know for a fact you did the right thing because we're looking at the numbers, and the numbers, even they have to give credit for the kind of numbers that we're producing. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. Under my administration, the era of economic surrender is over. We're renegotiating trade deals that are so bad, whether it's NAFTA or whether it's World Trade Organization, which created China. You look at China, it was going along like this, then we opened, stupidly, this deal. And China has been like a rocket ship ever since. And now, last year, We had almost a $500 billion trade deficit with China. We can't have that. We can't have that. I have great respect for President Xi, but we can't have that. We have to go and we have to do what we have to do. We just can't let countries, as an example, Mexico. We have a $100 billion trade deficit with Mexico. What does that tell you? You know what it tells you? NAFTA is no good. It never was any good. But for some reason, nobody ever changed it. They emptied our factories. You got to see the car plants and the auto plants in Mexico like you've never seen anything like it before. I want those companies, and they're starting. I want them back here. I want them back here. They're going to come back here, too. And we want to make our neighbors happy, but we can't continuously have other nations taking advantage of the United States like never before. And this has gone on for a long time. This has gone on for longer. The last administration was a disaster, but this has gone on for much longer than the last administration. And we've got to change it. We're going to change it. So we're renegotiating deals. And you know what? Hate to say it, but if we can't make a fair deal for the United States, we will terminate the deal and we'll start all over again. We're going to have to do it. So, under my administration and with your help, don't forget, you, many of you, were the forgotten people. You were the people that when the polls came out, they didn't know that you existed. The Democrats are trying to figure out who you are because they want to get you back. But you were people. We've had people that never voted, but they're great patriots, but they never saw anybody they wanted to vote for. Then they go to the election. They've got Trump, Pence. They got hats. They got all sorts of things. Trump over here. Make America great again hats, right? So our country is starting to do well. We are going to make it greater, better, safer than it ever was before. The reason is you. This has been a great movement. They try like hell. They cannot stand what we've done. But we're doing the right thing. We're even doing the right thing for them. They just don't know it yet. They just don't know it yet. Even the media will absolutely support me sometime prior to the election. All those horrible people back there, they're going to support me. You know why? Because if somebody else won, their ratings would go down. They'd all be out of business. Nobody would watch. They'd all be out of business. So I just want to tell you that we are going to win. I'd love you to get out there, work really hard for 18. We need more Republicans to keep the tax cuts, to keep all of this going. And I love you. I respect you. I appreciate everything you've done for the country. I appreciate everything you've done. I do want to say, because people have asked, North Korea, we imposed today the heaviest sanctions ever imposed on a country before. And frankly, hopefully something positive can happen. We will see. But hopefully something positive can happen. But that just was announced, and I want to let you know we have imposed the heaviest sanctions ever imposed. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for everything. You have been incredible partners, And I will let you know in the absolute strongest of terms, we're going to make America great again, and I will never, ever, ever let you down. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For more than an hour and a quarter, he spoke, the president there, reveling in a buoyant and boisterous reception from the conservative crowd at CPAC, the annual gathering of conservatives in Washington. We will get more into those Korea sanctions that he mentioned almost as an afterthought there at the very bottom of his speech. Welcome to Happening Now. What a way to start this Friday. I'm John Scott.
And I'm Molly Line. President Trump addressing that conference for the second time since winning the White House, telling his supportive crowd there, those welcoming crowds, that the administration has hit the crowd running. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live on the North Lawn with a look at what we just watched.
Molly, good morning to you. And this is one of the longest speeches, if not the longest speech I've ever seen the president give. And that goes all the way back to the campaign as well. Sometimes he would touch the hour mark, sometimes go a little over, but that one was a full hour and 15 minutes. So that's a very long speech, much of it talking about the Marjory Stoneman Douglas school shooting in Parkland, Florida last week. The president saying that he supports common sense gun safety measures, improving background checks, making sure that mentally ill people don't get a hold of weapons. The president also supports raising the minimum age to buy a rifle on the federal level, at least, from 18 to 21, though it's interesting that he didn't mention that particular aspect of gun safety here at CPAC. He also said that we need to turn schools from soft targets into hardened targets and arm certain staff members in the schools. Listen to what the president said.
I also believe that schools have to have some form of protection. They can't just be open-ended, gun-free. Gun-free is an invitation for these crazy people to just come in and shoot. If they're not gun-free, if there are guns inside, held by the right people, by highly trained professionals, you're going to see this end.
The president talking there in his departure from the White House on the way to the CPAC conference at the Gaylord Hotel just south of D.C. in Maryland. The president also asked about that Broward County Sheriff's deputy, Scott Peterson, who'd been a resource officer, as they call armed guards at school, since 2009 at Douglas High School, but stayed outside as the shooter was gunning down students and teachers. The president with nothing kind to say about him, either at CPAC or here on the way to the helicopter. Listen.
He's trained his whole life. There's an example. But when it came time to get in there and do something, he didn't have the courage or something happened. But he certainly did a poor job. There's no question about that. But that's a case where somebody was outside, they're trained, they didn't react properly under pressure, or they were cowards. It was a real shot to the police department.
Peterson resigned from the Broward County Sheriff's Office yesterday. The president doubled down on his idea of arming either certain teachers or coaches or other personnel in the school, saying these are people who love their students. They're with them every day. He would rather have somebody on the inside who loves their students armed rather than having a resource officer on the outside who may not know the students as well. The president, almost as an afterthought, Molly, mentioned North Korea. We were told that this is going to be a big aspect of the speech. In fact, we had an excerpt given to us before the president went on stage there at CPAC in which he was supposed to say, today I'm announcing that we're launching the largest ever set of new sanctions on the North Korean regime. The Treasury Department will soon be taking new action to further cut off sources of revenue and fuel that the regime uses to fund its nuclear program and sustain its military by targeting 56 vessels, shipping companies, and trade businesses that are assisting North Korea in evading sanctions. But the president just went over all of that, was talking about other things, and then just mentioned it at the end. But right now, after I leave you, Molly, I'm going inside the White House where the Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, is expected to walk us through these new North Korean sanctions. Again, the biggest package ever implemented against the country by the United States. And I think we're probably going to carry that live as well. Molly?
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to get some of those further details. And it was fascinating to listen to the president. One of the things, too, he touched on looking ahead to the midterms and trying to activate that base as well along the way in that speech. John Roberts, we appreciate it. We know you have work to do, and we'll let you head inside. Thanks,
Molly.
So the president touched on gun law reform in that speech. Democrats have long called for sweeping changes to the nation's gun laws. Some Republicans, including the president, are only now proposing certain restrictions, but at least one critic warns the GOP's gun temptation might actually be detrimental to efforts to prevent gun violence. Wall Street Journal columnist Kim Strassel writing, the Parkland, Florida school shooting is rightly causing a new national debate. With astounding cynicism, Democrats rushed to capitalize on dead teens while ineffectually dragging out the same fatigued arguments they've been making since the Clinton era. They are back again with the assault weapons cry, calling for an arbitrary ban on a handful of scary-looking guns when millions of other firearms can kill just as efficiently. She goes on to write, the GOP has excelled in recent decades in pointing out the barrenness of this gun control agenda with statistics and common sense, and they've pointed out the unifying thread behind these mass shooting events, mental illness. The writer of those words, Wall Street Journal columnist Kim Strassel, joins us now. You think that the GOP is potentially falling into a trap on this gun control debate, Kim?
I don't think you're going to see the GOP, for instance, signing on to an assault weapons ban or confiscation, which you're now hearing many Democrats call for as well, too. But you did hear the president, and as John Roberts just said, he didn't mention it in his speech, which is notable, but he'd called for raising the age at which you can purchase rifles to 21. Marco Rubio is out there with that idea. Rubio's also been proposing a new ban on magazines of large capacity. And I think that there's a worry that Republicans follow them down that road, and it's unfair to the people who are suffering these massacres because these are not the solutions. They are not going to stop the next tragedy.
Well, why would, say, a ban on large capacity magazines, why would that not work in your view?
Well, because anyone who is familiar with firearms know that you can get around that simply by having a lot of magazines, quickly reloading. This is actually what's happened in some of these prior shooting events as well, too. So that is not going to stop someone who is determined to go out and shoot a lot of people. The way we do that is to make sure that mental health, those that are mentally ill, do not get their hands on these guns in the first place.
And the warning signs in this particular shooting event were so clear and so obviously ignored. I mean, the list of contacts that Nicholas Cruz had with law enforcement and the phone calls people made about him, all of it went unrecognized. It's absolutely appalling.
This kid was painting a picture in 3D for anybody who would watch. I mean, and we've had a failure now of the FBI, who was tipped off about him twice, the Broward County Police Department, which was told about him 23 times, Social Services, which did not intervene in the family, the officer who stood outside and didn't go in. I mean, and yet these same people who are saying, you don't need guns because we'll protect you. It's not a wonder that a lot of Americans are very skeptical of the argument that government is the answer here.
And you point out in your column, we have tried a ban on the so-called assault weapons in the past, and that's when the Columbine attack took place.
Yeah, exactly. And also we have government reports that were done that have shown that it had no effect on overall gun homicide. We're not even talking about the right issues here. 80% of gun deaths from homicides are inflicted with handguns. So we get these outside attention on certain types of firearms when we have school shootings like this. But again, the question is mental illness. How do we make sure that the people that are perpetrating these crimes don't get their hands on these weapons in the first place? And that's going to take, by the way, a lot of effort, because if you want to prevent them from doing that, you have to know who they are in the first place. And we've got federal privacy laws and state commitment laws that make it impossible to know who the potential killers are. So we've got some real work to do.
Kim Strassel is the author of that thought-provoking column in today's Wall Street Journal. I encourage our viewers to check it out. Kim, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Vice President Mike Pence taking aim at Democrats during his CPAC speech, his warning to conservatives ahead of the midterm elections.
Fox News alert, and right now in the Brady briefing room at the White House, that's the Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin filling in the details on something that President Trump alluded to a few minutes ago, the heaviest sanctions ever imposed against North Korea, being laid out right now by the Secretary of the Treasury. We are keeping an ear on what he has to say. We will let you know the highlights as the hour progresses.
This administration.
Vice President Mike Pence using his CPAC speech to warn conservatives about the midterm elections. Pence telling crowds at the annual convention that Democrats have the opportunity to take back Congress this November if Republicans don't put up a fight.
It would be a disaster for our cause if Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House again. But we're not going to let it happen. But this movement should know it's a very real threat. because the other side knows exactly what's at stake. The other side is motivated. They're mobilized. So today, to the men and women of this conservative movement, I want to admonish you. Let this be the day that we, as a movement, decided to deliver another victory for the American people in 2018.